This is the story of people on the move, of the age-old need to get from one place to another. It is the story of the Natchez, Chickasaw, and Choctaw Indians, following traditional ways of life, of French and Spanish people venturing into a world new to them, and of people building a new nation. The Natchez Trace Parkway leads you 444 miles through 3 states and 10,000 years of North American history. Established as a unit of the National Park System in 1938 and officially completed in 2005, the Parkway commemorates the most significant highway of the Old Southwest. From the prehistoric mound builders of the Southeast to the Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Natchez people, the Natchez Trace has been a path of discovery, settlement, trade, and warfare. People began to form more permanent communities along the Natchez Trace over 2,000 years ago. Today, we call these people mound builders for the earthen structures they left on the landscape. Imagine groups of people walking with empty baskets, collecting soil to use for building their mounds. They carried basket after basket to create mounds in remembrance of members of their community. One of the largest in the country, at 35 feet tall, is Emerald Mound. We can only speculate about the ceremonies or rituals that took place on top of this sacred mound, which is still important to the Natchez, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and other descendants of the mound builders. The mound builders gradually abandoned their way of life and began living in smaller communities. The Chickasaw village site reveals how the Chickasaw lived. The rich soil of the Black Belt Prairie was ideal for agriculture, and the native grasses provided abundant food for wildlife. Natural ridges provided views of potential threats, while the open expanse provided a location for winter and summer homes. By the 1700s, boatmen from the Ohio River Valley, or cane tucks as they were called, loaded their flatboats with corn, tobacco, furniture, and other goods each year, and spent several weeks floating down the Mississippi River to Natchez. After selling their goods, and often their boat, they started their long journey home on foot. Inns, or stands as they were called, like Mount Locust, provided shelter from the elements. 25 cents would get you corn mush for dinner and a place to sleep that night. A day's walk would bring you about 15 miles closer to home and to another stand. Small streams, rivers, and swamps needed to be crossed. Poison ivy, mosquitoes, and snakes were to be avoided. And the arduous task of walking for a month or more left even the most seasoned boatman longing to get home to the family he left behind. In the early 1800s, thousands made the trip along the Natchez Trace, not only boatmen, but also renowned explorers, naturalists, war heroes, and politicians. Meriwether Lewis of the Lewis and Clark Expedition traveled along the Natchez Trace while he was governor of the Upper Louisiana Territory. After several days of traveling on horseback, Lewis found himself at Grinder's Stand in Tennessee. 2 gunshots were fired. No one knows for sure what happened that night in October of 1809 along the Natchez Trace. However, existing historical evidence supports the probability of suicide. During the War of 1812, The Trace was full of the sounds of Andrew Jackson, marching over 2,000 troops up the Natchez Trace to Nashville. Jackson demonstrated to his troops that he was tough as hickory, and he is still known as Old Hickory today. By the 1830s, travel all but stopped along much of the Natchez Trace. The power of the steamboat made travel up the Mississippi River not only feasible, but faster and easier for travelers. Even though the heaviest traffic along the Trace was a distant memory, a segment was in use during the Civil War. As General Ulysses S. Grant was preparing for the siege of Vicksburg in 1863, he used a surviving section of the old Trace from Port Gibson to Jackson. Battles at Port Gibson and Raymond took place along the Natchez Trace. Although we didn't know their names or which battle they fought in, the graves of 13 Confederate soldiers can still be found just north of Tupelo, Mississippi. By the early 1900s, travel on the Trace had largely come to a standstill. The Mississippi Daughters of the American Revolution, however, placed historic markers in each county that the Trace ran through. This one gesture brought the attention that was needed to the abandoned Trace. And in 1938, construction began on the Natchez Trace Parkway, one of more than 390 units of the National Park Service. Today, the Natchez Trace provides a near continuous greenway from the edge of the southern Appalachian foothills of Tennessee to the bluffs of the lower Mississippi River. On its journey, the Trace crosses 4 different ecosystems and 8 major watersheds. The diversity of habitats provides homes for a wide variety of animals, and still more migrate along the parkway. If you're looking for wildlife, walk on one of the many 20-minute loop trails. Try to find alligators at Cypress Swamp, or visit Rock Spring to watch for beavers. The parkway bisects the southern Black Belt Prairie, which is best explored at Chickasaw Village near Tupelo. Take your camera along to capture butterflies and birds among the wildflowers. Horseback riders and hikers may end up sharing a segment of the Natchez Trace National Scenic Trail with deer or turkey. 5 sections of the trail parallel parts of the parkway. If you'd rather stick to the roadway, try it in an RV, on a motorcycle, or even a bike. Thousands of cyclists travel at least part of the parkway each year. If boating or fishing is your activity of choice, stop at the Ross Barnett Reservoir north of Jackson, Mississippi, or the Colbert Ferry site on the Tennessee River in Alabama. Relax to the soothing sounds of Jackson Falls and Fall Hollow Waterfalls to the north, and Owens Creek Falls to the south. These waterfalls can be enjoyed all year round, but are especially beautiful in the spring. Make sure you drop by the Visitor Center in Tupelo to enjoy the many interpretive displays and get assistance in planning your visit. Or take a tour through historic Mount Locust to discover the way of life shared by people who lived there 200 years ago. If you want to spend a little more time, camp at Rocky Springs, the Jeff Busby site, or the Meriwether Lewis site. Each of these campgrounds has unique historic and natural resources, and there are no camping fees. The Natchez Trace Parkway covers one of the largest geographic ranges of any unit in the National Park Service. It meanders through 3 states and 25 counties, and 20 communities can be found just beyond the trees. The parkway has more than 1,000 miles of boundary, but National Park Service land is only 800 feet wide on average. National Park Service staff work with over 3,000 commercial and private landowners to protect and maintain scenic and cultural viewsheds. People who lease land within the park's right-of-way plant their fields with characteristic southern crops including cotton, corn, and hay. Thanks to this cooperative effort, visitors have the opportunity to view a traditional agricultural landscape. While the parkway is beautiful, it is also fragile. The 2,600 plant and animal species that have found a safe haven here will only remain as long as they are protected. The National Park Service preserves the parkway's natural and cultural resources for future generations. The original designers of the parkway may not have known that the landscapes they were showcasing would be so precious in the 21st century. The views seen by future visitors will depend on cooperative efforts between the National Park Service and its neighbors. You too can help preserve this amazing landscape. Drive slowly, enjoy the scenic beauty and your journey through history. Please help us preserve it and its stories for future generations.